getting stipends for our writers. So this event is funded in part by poets and writers through public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. And as I said, I'm happy to say that each reader is compensated for the reading tonight. So if you like what you hear, if you like these faces and these amazing poems, you too can join office hours. You can write with us in our community. I'll pop our website in the chat as we go along. And Avia Tadmor is going to be our amazing MC for the night. So please welcome Avia. I also forgot to say that ways to cheer tonight. You can do your claps. We can do these guys, some snaps. We have all our emojis too. You can blow people up in the chat. So feel free. All right, Avia.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Greg. And it's so exciting to be here together. And this reading, in lieu of reading traditional bios, I will share everyone's favorite ritual over the holidays. So this is a good opportunity for everyone here to think, what is your favorite ritual over the holidays? Our first reader is Emily Hockaday. And Emily Hockaday's favorite holiday ritual is spending Christmas Day reading in bed. Although now that she has a 5-year-old, this ritual is a bit of a challenge.
Thank you, Avia. And thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Greg at the Bureau, and to everyone who's here. I'm very lucky to be part of office hours. I'm actually going to start with 2 poems that I workshopped in office hours. So thanks for your help on these. The first one is, how could I have known? How could I have known is a thing people say about the inevitable. How could I have known where this would all end up? How could I have known that if I let the rhubarb flower, the harvest would suffer? How could I have known that you would die? Not only die, but leave the rest of us here to go through your drawers, decide which t-shirts should remain and which toolbox contained the best C-clamp. You left us here to continue the mundane movements of the living. How could I have known that these patents would collect in a cardboard box behind photo albums in the guest room closet? How could I have known that would be your last day on Earth? How could I have known that aphids come twice, once in the spring and again in the brittle fall just before the frost? How could I have known these tomato plants were indeterminate, growing indefinitely, something all tomato gardeners seem to know? I must have known all this, as I know to keep breathing until one day, like you found, it will be beyond me. How could I have known the pain would dull? Your loss, a tiny seed in my chest. And I'm going to keep the gardening vibes going with another one that I workshopped here this semester called Phenotypic Plasticity. The grasshopper and locust are genetically identical. Famine, population density, the exact conditions will trigger the biological process that produces a swarm. Insatiable, destructive, dark wings opening in the sun. It has been 5 years since you were on this earth. From this side of the line, the years move faster. The differential grasshopper in my garden eyes me as I harvest tomatoes. Alarmingly large, I startled at its thick body the first time I spied it. Now I look within the foliage for the muscular legs folded and pressed to the tube-like abdomen. She seems unhurried, clinging to the vine, taking slow bites from plentiful fruit. I've been on a pantoum kick for December. I'm doing a, thank you for that support, Brian. For the month of December, I'm writing a poem a day, and I've decided to do all pantoums because it's like a puzzle and a poem. So the next 2 I'm going to read are very new, and they're both pantoums. The first one I do have a content warning for, so there's the threat of gun violence in this poem. It's titled 10th Anniversary. I spell out the word G-U-N-S, but my daughter will understand soon. Mornings at the schoolyard, the children buzz like bees. My daughter will understand soon why her class practices hiding. The children buzz like bees, voices a whisper. Her class practices hiding from intruders, voices a whisper, ears tuned for footfalls from intruders. Their bodies are small as their ears tune for footfalls and they tuck into balls. Their bodies are smaller than you remember being. She tucks into a ball at night against a duck light. You remember being that age, don't you? A duck nightlight against the wall. It's easy at that age. You don't wonder about the drills. It's easy against the wall, practicing being flat. The wonder about the drills is that they are used to standing flat, practicing being obscured. They are used some mornings at the schoolyard, the word I obscure by spelling out guns. And this next pantoum is kind of about the New Horizons mission. And it's titled, The Most Distant Object Explored. Every day on this earth is another day with you. Right now, New Horizons studies planetesimals in the Kuiper Belt. Another day with you is another day of relinquishing control. Planetesimals in the Kuiper Belt whisper how this solar system formed. Another day of relinquishing control threatens to break me into my component parts, whispers of how this universe formed. I know I am only molecules. Break me into my component parts. Promise we'll commingle when we are finally only molecules. Promise because the promise to commingle is the only romantic thought in my heart. Promise because I'd hate to be without you. The only romantic thought in my heart turns to the edges of space. I'd hate to be without you, an orbital path turned to the edges of space. Right now, New Horizons' orbital path is longer every day on this earth. And I'm just going to read one more poem, which is also very new, and folks might see it in workshop next semester. And it is like a callback to teen angst. So hopefully us as poets can get into it. And I do have a content warning for this one too. There is depictions of drug use and risk-taking behavior. The hunger. So many times we could have died, speeding down 91 to see some person called George, whose father, I think, was the mayor of North Haven. Or was his name Fred, or maybe Jerry? I don't remember him, but I do remember you, Michelle, who I dream about sometimes, and who I kissed in a bathroom while Led Zeppelin knocked on the locked door. Maybe we could have died on Matt's boat, taking nitrous and jumping into the lake. Weeds stretching from the bottom to brush our feet, the long way into the dark, reaching us like music. I held your hand and ate raspberries while you slept beside me. I crushed cigarettes into the metal door of your ashtray. The world was sepia in daylight, neon all night. As everything was happening, I wanted to love you more than I was capable. I wanted to crush up pills and survive. You saw the hungriest parts of me, and you tried to feed them. We held each other to the past. We lived in a bubble of nostalgia. What did we know about safety? Thank you.
Woo, amazing. Emily has a new book out. Also, we'll put a link in the chat here. Our next reader is Avia Tadmor, who likes to make one New Year's resolution for the coming year and one retrospective New Year's resolution about something she's already done in the concluding year. This way, she doesn't end up feeling as bad if the New Year's resolution doesn't pan out. Please welcome Avia.
Thank you. Usually the resolution is something about being late and trying not to be late or trying not to be as late. So, it's fluid. Thank you, Sarah. And Emily, Lucy Brock Broido once said that to her, a good poem is a poem that makes you want to write back to it. And I feel that literally about every single poem you just read. So thank you. Okay, I'll read two poems because they're longish. And they were, I guess, without office hours, they would not have been readable, and maybe they would not even have been. So thank you, friends. This one is called Afloat. It's Lara's last day at the residency, and the grounds are almost empty. The other artists are probably hunched over desks or easels under fluorescent lights. Two poets, we tell ourselves we're always writing, even when we're not writing, which allows us to drink every noon, gulp the mini tequilas and whiskeys her husband gave her for Advent, hitchhike to Sweet Briar Lake, where today she offers to teach me how to swim or float. Clearly, I can't do either. And she is a good swimmer, Lara. On weekends, her dad would carry her and her brother at 5 a.m. from their beds to the car, drive almost 3 hours down to Assateague. That's how much water healed him after her mother left. After breastfeeding her daughters, Lara's boobs never shrunk back, which is why she can float as well as she does. Motherhood keeps her afloat, literally. I know what she means, though it's hard to take her seriously with her polychrome goggles, the dragonflies having a field day, seeing themselves in her eyes. Lara says they probably think she is Freya, Norse goddess of dragonflies, lust, and fertility. When I try to see myself in her gaze, I can't. Besides, I already know what I look like, graceless, flapping my way in the water and trying not to sink. Lara explains it's my own weightlessness that exhausts me. She's probably right. I'm all skin and breastbones, and I miss my body, my curves, the pounds the depression had taken away. All those months I've struggled to separate love from compatibility. Lara is gentle with me, says to lean back, lower my ears into the water. I need to find my center point and breathe into it. I let myself drift on the steadiness of her instructions, an almost transformative minute before I lose my hold. But that's okay, Lara says. I am learning. It's taken her years to learn to say, I am tired, to know when she's been trying to make something work for too long, trying too hard. We splash our way back to the dock where she tells me she had a really good Jewish friend growing up. And what's that thing you say in the all women's water? She means mikveh, I think, but I'm not that kind of Jewish. I've only been once before my wedding. All I remember is the attendant, a Yemenite woman and blind in one eye, peeling loose strands of hair off my back so I can be dirt-free for my new life with my husband, clean of what my own body makes. Lara asks, do you mind if I get naked here? She's already given back her room key and needs to change before driving home to DC. I don't, and her swimsuit thuds against the wood, heavy with lake water. She asks what I'm writing about, but goes on to answer the question, which makes me feel relieved. She's writing about Demeter, the deuteronologist of the story, the decentered one. For years, she could only see herself as the daughter Persephone, her mother gone, her sex drive steering the story, driving her toward all kinds of men from hell. But now she's almost 50 and nobody's daughter. When she's with her girls, she feels uneasy seeing herself in their gait, their shrugs. It's alarming to know that this story, its center had shifted. I want to ask her about the pomegranate, but here we're up close and I can't take her seriously. naked except for her Norse goddess goggles, to think I couldn't see myself in her face, that I was an apparition. Now there are two of me, one in each polychrome eye. I'm impossible not to see. Okay, and then this next one is shorter, and it's part of a series that I don't really know what's going on with, but it's very new and definitely was written thanks to our workshop. So thank you, everyone. The title is 52 years later, my grandfather delivers a survivor's testimony at Yad Vashem, but does not say Auschwitz once. My first name was Adolf. My father, my mother, what did they know? It was a popular name at the time, from the German meaning both noble and beast, meaning I'd live unafraid that my roots might be showing, less worried that someone will see through the part of me longer than my own life. I have 3 names, 4 tongues, a place behind my heart where I carry my earliest dead. I was 14. The ID my father's friend forged for me said I was a Catholic farm boy, meaning I'd learn to bury the parts of me that I had once named my life. On Sundays, I'd join the old couple in church. Under the sign of the cross, I'd survey the pews, the shoe marks on every floor tile. I was a boy. My sister, my brother, my parents, their parents were drifting ashes on October sky. Other Sundays, I'd imagine the altar side foyer leads to a stucco tiled kitchenette where my sister sits peeling lemons, or I'd imagine all of them feeding on pine nuts out in the snow, or I'd imagine that they were the snow crowning the Tatras. I turned 16 on the refugee boat. The ID I found when we passed through Marseille said I was married and fathered 2 young sons. The first time I held a Jaffa orange, I made a promise to stay forever close to the land. I studied to be a botanist, developed a strain of peanut that can be grown in the cruelest drought. I knew what hunger was. I didn't know there are parts of a man that are born again with each of his daughters. Mine, 3 luminous coins I'd hold up to the light with mud-covered hands. If not love, what I felt for the groundnuts could be likened to kinship. The fruit must grow into itself, wholly underground. I don't know how long before a new country becomes a home. Maybe only when you have daughters who know there will be a permanent place on this earth they could visit one day, trace your name on the granite and sing their grief for you. I chose my new name, Abraham, meaning between beast and nobleman, I don't trust either. And I knew sacrifice. I still don't know lucky from fated or what is deserving. What I know is I lived. Thank you so much. And our next reader is Abba Belgrave. Abba's favorite holiday ritual involves copious amounts of tea and a candlelit evening of cards to farewell the year. You can find her cursing cold weather while gleefully hoping for snow.
Thank you, Avia. Your poems were lovely. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Greg. Thank you to all of the readers. Workshopping with you is always a pleasure. I'm going to read about 5 poems. Thematically, I should just warn you that they all kind of have ties to like apocalyptic themes in my poems that I'm working on in my manuscript, and people still in class of this semester. So basically, one of my poems from this semester is in here, but thank you, everyone. At my end, a beginning, June 2022, Brooklyn. 6 separate natural disasters, one day. And here I am, poisoned remnant, body as battlefield, monument, sacrifice and sacrament, relic of the old world and my new. Dear survivor, I will fool you, will fool myself, will take each left turn back through all that still burns, while as any non-believer waiting on God. I will break your heart and mine, say then unsay these truths entire and entirely too terrible by halves. One day, disaster, then several all at once. St. Michael. Was God, or merely his right hand, the tutor who walked me through dark wintry evenings in college, the wrestler who could not take me home to his mother, or the lover who fucked a bridesmaid. Say Michael means God, but only the terrible things, the stalker at every wrong return to safety. An angel who never hit me, who never had to. Lucky. It's only my third apocalypse. The sirens barely register. I brunch with friends, too slow for their discordant chatter, children, husbands, constipation. An ice shell has collapsed in the Arctic, distracts me. The rent, they say, the fucking rent, I nod. Back from the second longest year of my life. Bumblefuck is no Brooklyn. Hemorrhagic stroke is associated with severe morbidity, high mortality. My mother loves her backyard on the Ohio River, refuses her new reality so hard I almost forget mine. I drift in and out of conversation, smile. Triple negative breast cancer tends to occur. Snow day. It sounds like hail and is. The plink plink on my air conditioner enough to wake me, confused. I'm not going outside just yet. The wind moves my blinds, moves the plastic wrap I taped to window frame to keep the heat in. It's failing at the moment. As I bury myself deeper into this bed, no one has slept in but me. That's the third time the snowplow has scraped by on this one-way street, and I can't see the sun for all this gray-white. I've left my lights off, want to exist only in this near quiet where all my neighbors sleep in, cuddling their loves closer while the world goes on being cold and inhospitable. And I wonder at the man soft-spoken in the patty shop last night, asking that I was ignoring, and then felt guilty because stressed as I always am, I've never known hunger, even locked out and sleeping on the front door. I've never known the sharp pain throbbing or the slow creep of frostbite in my most worn shoes. I'm better off than half the world and selfish. So I bought him a patty. And he was so shocked and I so ashamed, I bowed my head before scrambling for the door. And I wonder where he is this morning. My discomfort is nothing, my laziness a gift. I should have given him more, given him my words, but I didn't. And today is worse than they thought. Dear Michael, 7th of February, 2018. I still want to watch this world die with you. It's a simple proposition. We destroyed each other, so our world, its small and large continuously is a metaphor. I hate you the way all other beings hate what threatens the illusion of our safety, always. Tender and furious, stupidity like yours as sweet to know as life is sour, sorrow trapped, told it's good. You will never understand me, so what will you say? What will you say? And I never listen again. But the only constant is your foolery. You and death come close and slow, insist on truth. Here at the end of all things, it's simple. I want to see you, scared. The last great day for Marina. Like all things sweet, delight runs bitter with time. Not dying or living, we rolled long shadows, summer grass, itch of it, common, and final, like drinking till we sang. And this is my last poem. Here at the end of all things, date unknown, place unknown. My love is the burning body in the backfield, jackals crowding close enough to eat. This was a fallow year, if we still have ears. And slowly, we of the bitter harvest die like so many animals, delirious with terrified confusion, hapless to change a damn thing. You should have killed me months ago, but didn't. Finding me at all in one miracle this new world gave us, like spite to show you how I've suffered with each and every departure. My recklessness, a thing of beauty, cut down. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba. And our next reader is Carrie Hohmann Campbell. Carrie has to watch the 1980s Garfield Christmas special at least once during the month of December to keep her holiday spirits high.
Thanks, Avia. And everybody else should watch it too because it has wonderful musical numbers. But thank you very much to Greg at the Bureau. Thank you for Sarah for organizing office hours. Thank you for everybody who's attending, and thank you mostly to Office Hours Workshop. You guys are all incredible poets. Thank you to all the ones who have gone before and who will go after me. Most of these have shown up in various forms in office hours, but a couple of them are like really brand new. So I'll let you know which ones are which. But Chrysalis is one that's been workshopped recently, and almost all these are thematically linked to motherhood, which is circling around in my first manuscript. So, Chrysalis. To morph into something even more delicate could be brave or naive. What does the other side hold for any of us? The caterpillar inside a chrysalis dissolved into goo before its butterfly form emerges. What I fear most is consumption and reconstitution. Whatever I am is splitting indefinitely, unable to fuse together even with liquid gold. Between sleep deprivation, rage at the inability to control bodily fluids, managing time, changes, etc., fleeting bliss. Polar bears aren't Jedi because they are Arctic creatures. Birthing another being did not make me feel whole. Every mother in every book I've ever read eventually comes to love their role, their mindset natural. But I don't buy it. I never had a burning desire to have children. These days, we are here now, a season shifting toward darkness, the cold floors and recoiling feet. We are here now almost 3 years later than imagined, passport expired, another heartbeat in the house. We are here now and then distracted by screams or our own silences, but the dog is content, both children asleep, and I must keep reminding myself, I am still here. This one's pretty new. I wrote it during our power hour, so another version's probably going to surface in spring. So it's called Surface Level. At first, I'm not sure what is different. Medium length brownish hair, eyes in the same place. My body assumes a shape underneath my clothes. Then, lifting the skirt of hair, the postpartum growth, spiking through the length, the yo-yo between recovery and bloat, strength and weakness shown in my abdomen. Yesterday, the pediatrician asked me if I was well, if I was perhaps pregnant again. The red balloon of shame inflated my face like it has both my middle and my consciousness, handful after handful of M&Ms and antidepressants, trying to convince myself I am fine, this is fine, everything will be fine. The kids seem fine. I let them think I can do the things they expect, hugs, kisses, feeding, dressing, but some days, when they are at school or grandma's house, when I should be grading essays at a furious pace to catch up for my procrastination, I end up under the duvet. To avoid thinking about how they are getting too much screen time, too many meals from bags or boxes, I worry about whether the knife my son's peer threatened him with is a real threat, a perceived threat, or just how kids interact in the 21st century. If I look closely, the mirror holds all these things in the tiny lines surfacing across my forehead and edges of my eyes, but maybe I can hold on to the smile a while longer. Thanks. I have two more. One's called Misunderstanding. No one prepares you for the aftermath of childbirth. It is assumed you will handle it like a woman, without fear or complaint, without hesitation, in silence, without objection, simple acceptance for what trauma your body just performed. I am told there are positive birth experiences, not the white-hot pain body, chaos, a self-absorbing mind loop of this is how I die, this is how I die, this is how I die. Push, they said. I am, I said. How should I be doing this differently? What dialect of this word can I not understand? Just breathe, they said, but only death flashed. And the last poem, thank you, is called Allowance. In moments when toy sirens, screams, and footfalls collide, when the waking life arrives too early with burning eyes, a sluggish brain, I wonder why I became a parent again, how a mindset against the experience of another childbirth could cave. Part of me knows I wanted peace to quiet the other voice I live with, but that doesn't withstand the unacceptable rage, the utter exhaustion, gambling with my mortality. I am not the hero of this story. All I want is to be left alone, not touched, yet the guilt suffocates, separates me, and rushes to their little arms despite my needs. I shouldn't say these things aloud. These things don't make for good mothers, who should love unconditionally at all times with their whole beings, a lie that has wormed its way into every atom. No human loves like that. Thank you.
Our next reader is Ashley Harris. Ashley's favorite holiday ritual is to have money in her pocket before the new year.
Thank you, Sarah, for having this. Thank you, Shakeema, for telling me that this exists. I'm gonna read the longest poem I have right now, because lately I just can't write a long poem. So it's called Birth. I must have been born with an umbilical cord of tentacles, the way I suction cupped to my mother's womb like it was an abyssal seabed. It was a tank of red. I was blamed for her shattered endometrium, strewn like blades of dried ink. She said I broke through the best years of her life. My hands and feet named me a kraken that destroyed her inside out, and now I have grown into a giant octopus. anchor onto strangers like a den of rocks, an overgrown mollusk who is too hideous to be hugged by its creator, but still holds its arms out like she is a coral reef, seagrass, or shallow tide pool. She pulls me off still, a current stuck in backdrift. I still try to hold on to a muddy terrain with no structure. I sink my fingers on her shoulder as she rips me off. I came from her and she thought she birthed a monster. The next ones I'm gonna read, thank you, are shorter. Next one is, you don't have a backbone. My spine is held up by women who gossip, who curl the backs of other women like hair rollers, who use their hunched esteem as stairs. I was born with all 24 vertebrae until my mother slapped some from my spine. My back is missing some teeth from the hands of my bullies, who all say no one will love me like they do. Okay. I'm gonna read another short poem. We think the body forgets. We think the body forgets, but surely it remembers the night, its portal vein, a bayou of drug powder caked in cognac. The liver holds on to too much luggage, remembers every shot, every bullet wound taken at the bar. You thought you had made it out each time alive. Our gaslit insides archive pain and cancer and tumor and metastasis and hemorrhage, aneurysm, and the most dramatic language. And I'm going to read two more. The next one is short, and then the last one is a little longer. This one still getting edited. It's called How Still. How still, how strangely still the water is today. In this world I call body, 70% of me is a ravaged river iced over by bed sheets, the waves in my vertebral disc at peace. It is not good for water to be so still that way, but yesterday was a hurricane, and no skeleton and skin can always hold a storm. My bed is a rain catcher, a place where my blood settles, and no war can cross my blood-brain barrier. And then the last one is old. So it's called The First Chemist. My granny is a chemist. Her hands, watch glasses, flasks, her fingers, pipettes, her shelves, mason jars of all sizes, how she has kept a garden grown from bloody tips and soles, how she has stayed alive this long, mixing gin and milk together when she catches the common cold, how she knows all the chemicals and cleaners, doesn't let folk correct how she pronounces them. She is a chemist, but you would call her a witch doctor. Her recipes to you, voodoo. Her black raspberry skin, how her face hasn't caved in, you would call her black magic. Ask her, where's your PhD? Your degree in chemistry? You would tell her she believes everything she sees on CNN, ABC, but she tries all her thoughts, tests her theories. In the middle of the woods, deep in the funk of Keysville, there is a home I know is a laboratory. How she knew bleach could blind a copperhead snake. How she split its head like a symmetrical molecule. How she killed deer with Ajax and comet dust. New to tender elder plantation land, and how sometimes she is nicer to animals than people, her own family, her own granddaughter studying chemistry. Whether she will ever listen to you or me is doubtful. She is stubborn, oil that is admissible to tears, to insults, to salt water. She is a chemist, or rather, an isolated chemical. Thank you.
I'm running out of sounds. Okay. Our next reader is James Fujinami Moore. James has a somewhat mysterious holiday ritual of buying new underwear and socks for the new year. Mysterious in that it was originally said to be a Japanese tradition passed down from our grandparents, but literally no one else in the family has ever heard of it. If you have any information about where this comes from, please contact James.
I'm serious about that, by the way. If you know anything about this, please tell me. I was actually getting my hair cut yesterday, and it turned out that the woman who was cutting my hair also has the same tradition, but she's half Pima Indian and half indigenous from by way of Mexico. And so I was just like, that isn't close to Japanese at all. Sarah asked if we would bring some stuff from office hours to read for this reading. And all of these poems I wrote in office hours because I've been in office hours a number of times because it's such a wonderful and like deeply generous community. I'm going to read them in the chronological order in which they were written because that seemed fun to me. 4 poems. This first one is called If I Should Die Eaten by a Pomeranian. I would like the priest to say that I did not see it coming, because if I did, I would have done something about it, despite the fact that it's never a good look to try and fight a Pomeranian, even if it started it, even if you see somewhere deep those tiny overplucked eyes, the echo of some older thing, some glint outside the cave, the growl of what isn't exactly a wolf. Dear priest, please say the thing about what wasn't a wolf and also the thing about the feral hog, how if you leave a domesticated pig outside for long enough, it becomes a hog, grows tusks and hair, how that's epigenetics, how a feral hog's not exactly a boar, but that hardly matters, does it, when you're bleeding out into the loamy floor, trying to figure out how your afternoon went so badly, how you entered the ecosystem, how your story about the woods turned into a tale, a cautionary tale, the kind of tale you hope isn't told by a priest in a non-denominational side room while the ushers check their watches, stifle their laughs, wonder what happened to the Pomeranian anyways, wandering the woods, growing its fur, finding its old wild, the priest wrapping up the story with something about nature, probably, the wet hungers of nature, probably, how the precise bright teeth of a Pomeranian are each the finger of God, probably, each wrapped around your throat, almost like a prayer. I was like reviewing these poems because I was like trying to time them, and then I realized that they're all like kind of sad boy poems, so I'm sorry that they're all sad boy poems, but that's also on brand for who I am as a person. This one is called Notes for G After the Death of His Mother with Everything Crossed Out. It is with I'm so everyone I know. If I can tell you, although there is nothing I can say, at the bottom of a well, the water is brackish and foul. I wish there was something I could. To filter water you are uncertain is safe. One method is to fold a cloth in half, half. Look, I'm here for half 7 times and use it as a filter. When my father died, it was as if remove most of the particulate and allow the sky shattered through my jar. I cannot imagine clean drink. Another method is to use a capful of bleach. A curious facet about the property of a noble gas is found in the way each atom spaces apart evenly, given enough room and time. Buy you a drink. In my experience, grief, the proportions escape me. Bleach also expires. Brackish, from the Dutch root, saltier than fresh water, less than the sea. A sunset makes a sound, doesn't it? I learned. Too late. Diagnostic quiz for human ghost. Fill out however you can. Over the past 2 weeks, please list the items you have lost. At the present moment, do you know the location and number of your teeth? In grams, please estimate the weight of each of the following: left lung, half liver, 3 fingers on your right hand. In miles, please estimate the distance from the back of your skull to the skin of your eye. Over the past 2 weeks, please estimate the number of times you've attempted to start a conversation and failed, including but not limited to grocery stores, living rooms, when you are alone. In incandescence, how much light passes through you? Is it enough to write a letter? Pick a letter. Pick a new name. Can you hear the woman singing? What is your death's taxonomy? Where is its kingdom and domain? How important do you feel to others? Are you sitting atop the creaking hinges of something only you can see? Are you certain there is no part of your body that is missing? Are you certain there is nothing missing at all? And the last poem I have for you, and thank you so much, is one that I wrote this semester, which is lovely. It is titled Poem in Which Every Word is 10,000 Years. The oldest surface on Earth is part of the Negev Desert, 1.8 million years old. Every other surface made newer by erosion, glacier, disaster. There was something alive then, too. The oldest tools are older than the oldest surviving surface by another 1.5 million, and yet we are so far from human. What is 10,000 years? Each word here is longer than the entire recorded history of human civilization. Each word goes quick. Of course, there were mammoths when the Negev was born. There were mammoths when the pyramids were built, too. I want you to feel this, how we still have time. Each part of the earth is turning over now, becoming recognizable. In your mind, this happens on fast forward, but the seas rise so slow. Here is our cousin Neanderthal, who buries his dead. And now the first modern human arrives here. There's still an ice age. There's still a place untouched in Negev. Maybe in your lifetime you will visit. Now the Neanderthals go extinct. The mammoths go extinct. Thank you.
Okay. It's incredible to hear everyone's poems being read by them, but one after the other. And as most of you know, we kind of workshop one poem a week, but to read a bunch of them and to kind of have like a sense of the emotional range and the imagistic range of each poet is so incredible. Our next reader is Sarah M. Sala. After she turns in her semester grades, Sarah takes a week where she doesn't should on herself. Should she be writing? Should she be reading a certain text? Should she run errands? No shoulds. She takes 7 days to chill, then dives back into things in January.
All right. Thank you, Avia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's such a really generous, warm, talented group of poets. And it sounds silly, but I'm really proud of this. It's not silly at all. I'm really proud of this group, right? And it really feels special to be part of this. I'm going to try to read a silly poem to start out. I have a migraine tonight. Shout out to migraines. So I'm going to read some migraine poems. So I'm super glad that at least I don't live in ancient times, because these are all real ancient migraine cures. Did you try yoga? Sneeze out the nostril closest to the headache. Eat a fatty pheasant. Place the migrainer's head inside a metal bucket and strike with a hammer. Drill a hole in your skull to release evil spirits. Apply a hot iron to the base of the skull. Gulp strong wine. Carve an incision in the sufferer's temple, then plug with peeled garlic. Ask a barber to bleed you. Rub nightshade into your scalp. Apply beaver testicle extract to the site of pain. Induce blisters on your neck skin, then lance them. Weave virgin goat fur into a tight headband. Lash a clay crocodile to your head. Combine a vulture's brains with oil to rub inside your nostrils. Smear a paste of succulents and earthworms over your eyebrows. Induce projectile vomiting. Place a live eel where the head throbs until the electric shocks render you numb. But seriously, have you tried yoga? So, I don't know, a couple of these I definitely would try or have tried, but I don't recommend them. Okay. This one's called Lime Wire. And this is one that I workshopped in the workshop with all these amazing peoples. If I could, I would cauterize the following on a decorative pillow, then toss it. Inside our suffering is a lesson. Status, migrantess in my 30s. I identify with the zoo lion. If you open the door to my enclosure, I would jet out without a backward glance, my body hurtling past the gatekeeper, nervous system paradisical as a coal seam fire. Yet, once the big cat escapes, it's to what? To sleep when there's a lull, to eat when it's pleasurable, and to shit in the neighbor's flower boxes. Still, fertilizer propagates raucous blossoms. The calla lilies tracing the street stun us with their red spiked throats, then freeze into knots for us to excavate and entomb their gnarled roots in a dry place until spring. My joy is anything but accidental. Shout out to the cats that poop on literally everything on our front porch. Our doormats are cursed, but we have the most beautiful flowers out front. My poor partner gets texts all the time like, there's doo-doo on the front porch, don't step in it. Okay, this is called Without Trace. Some lovers I hardly recall. Others endure like overkept spices, unscented. All of them I acknowledge, though not you. I'm left only to imagine your pleasure, because without it, there's only 5 years of plague, white siren in my brain. Nature has always driven my poetics. After the white-footed mouse, did my blood meal warm you? Tick. All right. Do you ever like see a poem and you're like, not today, sucker. I thought about it, but I'm passing you over. Okay. Just a couple more here. In Michigan, I once helped my dad clean a doe. He secured a rope around her back hoofs, then flung it up over the deck. In order to hoist her, I leaned into the peach of her fur, brushed the jet black hair of her eyelashes, avoided the coral slump of her gummy tongue. He warned me to avoid ticks, his initial knifing jagged, a ripping seesaw from chest to anus. I turned away, but I've never forgotten the plunge of the blade, the annihilation of her wild body. That same biting alterity snakes up my neck, colonizes the chamber of my cranium. Open me, you'll find a scree of glass, my brain no longer strung with pathways. Like happy holidays. My favorite meme that I saw this week was like, happy holidays, buy my book. Here's 17 trigger warnings for it. Please gift it to everyone you know. So shout out, buy some books, some poetry books for Christmas. This will be my last poem. Just imagining if a migraine was a classified ad. Migraine in the classifieds. The mouths whisper what they seek, number of amounts for automobiles, dapple dachshund litters, service workers, all gendered voices, both distinct and amalgamated, a fast tide of vocals, a medium whose spirits break free. Do the migraines think about us as often as we conjure them? Do the ancestors hear the same vocalizations? If you focus hard, you make out a word or two. Release selfness to the flow of neural fire. The words that seemed so important, now unintelligible. Bear down to a hoarse whisper, talk you to the edge of sleep. Ghost traces of sensory overload, permutations of everyone we have ever loved. Thank y'all.
Hey. Thank you, Sarah. Our next reader is Shakeema Smalls. And Shakeema's favorite holiday ritual is New Year's Eve house cleaning.
Hey, thank you. It's really great hearing everybody read tonight. Like, you hear the poems and workshop throughout the semester, but I'm just really glad to be here with everyone. So thank you, Sarah, for creating this space. And thank you all for just being a loving community. Let's see. So my poems typically run on the short side. And I'm gonna start with a poem called Watermelon Woman. Watermelon Woman. The cashier asked me if these are my melons. I have 3 with heavy yellow spots, so sweet. I tell her mostly, and she says, that's how you got such nice skin, and this makes me solar. So I smile and lightly touch the sweet spot on my belly too. My afro cotton across my neck, hoop earrings cool against the edge of my jaw. It is the hottest day of summer and the world is ending, or so the white folks say. Today, I can only think of how I want to be touched, of how I want them to hear the pop of my heels when I walk, of how I want a holiday where I am a lamp filled with oil, how I want your abracadabra on my thighs. My want, no diode, but all electric. I want to bloom like water, like want, like light. I want to eat your heart. And the next one is Analog Love Note. Our love was frequency then. We were familiar. Our eyelids had become wandering telescopes across the city, our living names as weeping stars easing our blindness. The city rising beneath our bellies, dried bits of fore milk plucked from our braids, our hair palm-rolled cotton cords. We fought the silence rising from our teeth. We were dangerous women of the forest. But this is space, and we have no nationalities. I lit a spliff and knelt beneath your belly, indentured to the taste of loving sin. Who misnames our bodies, our faints, our desires? We, the anointed, of fragrant Muslim oils and black soap. Tender woman, my analog is desire. For your undulating hips, our orbiting satellites, we are wound in treason. Our sound and space are the same. Dying planets. That night, I watched a planet die. I pointed my chin up at a stray moon and rubbed my nail bed sore. You told me you dreamt about me. It was a funeral. I was not dressed and had left this world for occasion. I gathered the wool, but had come back for the visions. I came here to live for you, laid down beside me at 4 a.m. I came here to blaze with you. I felt the benzos, a gossamer against the dying planet, weep light all over me. Loneliness. Your face softened, so I scattered my toes and dug, unlike light. but flesh, branded into earth where I felt I'd survive, solid. I paced the river's edge as if, as nothing, as formerly living, by your rising tide, and I am covered in night, a rich planet. If we were a world, we too would be explosive as ravenous stars, eating the fires of this indifferent galaxy. And this last one is not a love poem, but an elegy that I most recently worked on in workshop. Elegy where one must have an acre to harrow a grave. I walk down by the bottle tree, its low hum quivering. I have not been here before, where the cardinals whipple. The old fence, my sandaled feet ashen, hands trailing, rust and honeysuckle. Mill sulfur welts my nose, mingling with the neighbor's burn barrel pepper clouds. The trees are partial. Their rumors won't subside. Their magnolia congregation about these meeting rivers. My feet splintered across the train tracks, a dingy white undershirt left by an uncle whose blood was sweet, whose body fissured, the highway median between us, its yellow markings a ruler in the bosom of an old engine. In grief, one cannot help but cross a line. I had some questions for the twin pines splitting a ditch in the front yard, a hole where water once was, a history of digging. Thank you.
Another thing that's really incredible in us coming together is, as most of you know, Office Hours works in 2 workshop groups. And so this is also a chance for each group to hear, not just read on a shared document, but to hear the other group's poems being read, which is so moving and feels so intimate. Our next reader is Annie Wei. Annie enjoys walking around the neighborhood, seeing who has the most decked out holiday lights.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. And thanks so much for all of your readings. That was amazing. So I'm going to just like test run some of my revisions on you all. I'll start out with maybe something that's more weird or out there, or that's what it's become by this point. Okay. Alien movie as missed connection. In the end, you will arrive too late. The laws of nature having never been on our side, like how any living creature perishes in a strong gravitational field, head pulled ever further away from the toes. Still, I'm grateful for having had all of our heart-to-hearts, my own 4 chambers against your own. The radio antenna, a kind of phantom limb, where if you listen long enough, even static becomes its own kind of music. There are no rules in one-way communication. And you, with your elusive mannerisms, the brief sightings in Nevada, Palm Springs, if I didn't know you any better, I would have said that you were just shy. As it is, the sky is always bigger over the desert. And lately, I've been thinking about that other law, the law of probabilities, how every galaxy contains 1 billion stars, 1/5 of which have planets, 1/5, and I start to think of how 1/5 of all mammals are actually bats. Bear with me, I'm not a bat, although who hasn't dreamed of flying? Who wouldn't want to be transformed, alien feelings inside an alien body, like being an adolescent again, return home to simpler times, before intelligence became the precursor to self-destruction. Okay, I lied, so it isn't nature that gets us in the end, nor the same old animal instincts, hunger and mistrust blown up to human proportions. The simpler life forms would concur, having already grasped the tragedy of causality. It makes no sense, for instance, to speak of being at the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, right and wrong being relative in the same way that time and space can be. Nights when I start to think there's no one out there, I remind myself that even a failed star illuminates the sky. The long distance requires its own kind of faith, because this is how any kind of relationship begins. How else survive geologic time, the vast emptiness of space itself? All right, and the next thing I'm going to read, I can read it because we're now squarely in the middle of winter. Fall. Yesterday at Mount Auburn, the woman who called in to say she couldn't deal with life anymore thought she was having a psychotic break, no prior psychiatric history. Don't we all, a nurse said without looking up. This being, of course, real life. But real in the way pain is, or leaves falling, how things stand out most in opposition, momentary flash of scarlet, arm and leg, it turned out I hadn't, after all, broken. They gave me ibuprofen, the other woman a pat on the back. And of course, I got too greedy, one hand already reaching up and over the next. Like how the mind is always one step ahead until it isn't suddenly. Never mind, that's what a joint is, elbow, ankle, weak link in the body, mine. What does it mean anyways, the word temporary? We hobbled out into the brisk sunset, stood silently watching as the leaves continued with their missed turns, rust red, overripe, spiraling as if to prolong their one brief thrill of light. That's the thing about falling, it happens so fast. All right, and I'm going to close out with something short. Letter from self. Not even a promontory, not even the moon. Often I find myself at a loss for words, sedimentation along the marginals, what passes for river in the half fluorescence of 2 a.m. 2 stones I needed to get off my chest. 2 birds I buried alongside the stones. Most nights I find myself in retrospect, body of water I carry in lieu of conversation. I just wanted to say that no one knows what they're doing at this hour. That somewhere there's a world where having just cried makes one more beautiful, not less. Thank you.
Wow, and I was just writing in the chat, but I'll say it. I was writing, these are such powerful revisions, Annie. It's kind of incredible. So just to kind of read where so many of these poems are, because we've seen them in like embryonic stages or different amoeba-ish stages of their life. Our last reader is Ryan Dzelzkalns. Ryan listens to Handel's Messiah at least once all the way through.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, my mom used to always play when she was doing her holiday baking. So I'm just used to having it on repeat, like in the house growing up. So I got to get it once all the way through. Yeah, first and foremost, thank you everyone. This has been an absolute treat to hear. You know, in the workshops, it's just one poem we focus on at a time. So getting to hear everyone's voice in sort of an extended period is really wonderful to hear them embody their poems. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to Office Hours. This is really wonderful. Great community. Love it. Amazing. Would recommend 100%. Let's see. I'm going to do 3 poems real quick. I write a lot of, or I have historically written a lot of Godzilla poems. So I'm going to start with one of those. Godzilla Gets Lucky. Tonight, Godzilla goes home with a nuclear reactor. After a series of interlocking glances, the machine slides over, says, "Hey, handsome, can I buy you a drink?" Godzilla doesn't blush, he brightens. We all know how this goes. The hand on the thigh, the open-mouthed laughter. Propaganda says, you absorb more radiation from a lover's potassium, but he doesn't believe it. Not for a second. Godzilla knows the diffuse tingle, the sensation when pressing his temple into reactor's neck of light. He knows the backstick of sheets and deuterium. It's a hell of a way to boil water. In the morning, the reactor will start smoking, talking about his hometown, how beautiful the view of the coast. He will say, "You should visit." But Godzilla won't believe it. Tonight is like every other night. Godzilla, enamored with the scientific process, seeing what he can get away with, how far supercritical, how hard he can push before the atom splits. And so this next one with the group, I think that Godzilla poems represent a big sort of part of my life, maybe over the last decade or so. But I think that chapter is sort of closing. So this is one that I brought in this semester with the group. And it's sort of saying goodbye to Godzilla. So this one's called Godzilla Sings. 1. You've been avoiding me, haven't you? Your feelings seem to have shrunk to match the size of your body. You should not quiet yourself for others. If you be quiet for yourself. I invented Tokyo as a place to put my feet. Do not let it reinvent you. You tried destruction because you thought you had to. I take something low and sprawling and break the fire out of it because that's who I am. I am a monster and you are a boy. We are not the same, my monstre délicat. Take your teeth, for instance. How they dull, how squat they are. You don't need me anymore. 2. You have been dreaming of pursuit, prey, and when driven to it, murder. I dream of teaching children to dance. Yes, even I can be a mother. The point is, dreams can stay on the inside, and there could be a river in there. Watch as they go by, but they go by. What I'm saying is maybe it's time to retreat from reverie. It served its purpose, but you have a husband now. Tokyo sprouts every day like a field of garden meals that I flatten every night. Leave me to it. And this last one, so we just moved this a couple weeks ago. And so this is a very new poem and it's called Moving In. Final day at the old place. A mourning dove appeared on the balcony. We had to take everything with us, but when I reached for it, it flew away. The birds at the new place, though, crowd around us, so that it's as if we're being dubbed over, as if we've been given a new language of birdsong for just the two of us. When we kiss, our applause fills the air. We accept trash bags of oranges from a neighbor who wants to see what the ruckus is all about. Fill the apartment all morning. It's hard to keep quiet here, where the smell of hay stays low to the ground. We have no street, no map, no how to get in. And yet we are learning to iron the curtains, to make love where there are windows. The only view at the new place, persimmon over killdeer in the cemetery. I expect the ragtag lull of sleep from the sound of his teeth. Each morning, the scent of his flesh no laundry can undo. This is the first time as husbands we sleep on the floor. It's always raining, and yet we are happy. The labeled boxes show us how organized our life could be, and the rain brings dreams.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your writing. Thank you for deeply listening, for gathering, for building and maintaining such a warm community. Office hours will be back at it again this spring, 2023. I dropped a link in the chat. You can buy some poetry broadsides, poster up some poems all over your house, buy poetry books, support poets, hug a poet with consent. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone for being here. It truly is a really, really special community. It's pretty badass that we have people all over the US and in Japan now, just because that's how we do. So everybody have a great night, a good December, and we'll be back in 2023.